We broke a story on the website just a little while ago that XXXTentacion has been murdered. Murdered outside of Miami, where he was shopping for motorcycles, and as he went back to his car, a gunman ran up to his vehicle, fired shots, and from all eyewitness accounts, it looks like he died pretty quickly, even though he was taken to the hospital.
He was rushed to a hospital, but he was pronounced dead while he was at the hospital. And, you know, the sheriff's department, this happened, like you said, in broad daylight. There were several witnesses from what we've heard so far.
We spoke with one who said...
This was his BMW that he was sitting in when he was shot. This was right after the shooting. He's still on the scene there. You can see there are witnesses.
And the eyewitnesses say that he had no pulse.
At that point.
He appeared dead to them, but the paramedics took him to the hospital where he was officially pronounced dead.
20 years old. XXX is one of the, an up-and-coming rapper who had a lot of promise, had a lot of musical talent, but only 20 years old, but had a lot of demons as well.
And we continue to get more police dispatch audio in from this, guys. And right now, kind of what dispatchers are saying is it was two African-American males. They left in a Dodge Journey. They're treating this as a possible drive-by. And they also say that there was a Louis Vuitton bag stolen from the BMW, too. So unclear if this was a target, if this was someone they were robbing, or what led up to it.
Yeah, I guess that's right, that it could have just been random.
Could be
but
a random
he's had his issues.
He's had issues, although he's not one of those guys who's known for having huge beefs with lots of different rappers. Remember, last year, he was jumped while he was in L.A., got beat up, and we actually spoke to him shortly after that incident. He initially thought that Migos were the guys who had jumped him. Turns out it was not them, and he apologized to them, but he talked to us about needing to possibly increase his security.
Are you going to get more security or?
No, because in the end of the day, if I need to be confronted, it's going to happen. The world is going to align that for me. So if I got to be a man and tighten up by my very own self, I'll do what I got to do. At the end of the day, I mean, I understand paying to have people, like, make sure you're safe, but I had 12 security guards here today. So what the am I going to pay more money for to get more security if I could just get snuffed out that easy? So I'm going to handle up, that's all. I'm going to handle myself.
So Brad had mentioned that there was dispatch audio. We have some of it, and this will give you a sense of what the scene was like.
Several gunshots, possibly a drive-by. No description on the subject. Witness advised a black Dodge Journey is the subject's vehicle. Shot somebody in a black BMW.
Salt Mill, level 1, Trala. Gunshot wound, Trala code.
So they had not declared him dead, but again, from all accounts, from everybody we talked to at the scene, I mean, I think they tried to revive him unsuccessfully at the hospital, but it seemed like this was kind of it.
I mean,
it's really sad.
As far as the video too, he seemed like he's very helpless. It's very sad. He's 20 years old. He did have a lot of different beefs with amongst multiple people, so I hope it's not one of those situations that they wanted to do some type of retaliation thing to him.
Remember, he was awaiting trial on domestic violence. He had a number of charges against him there.
Domestic violence against a girlfriend who at the time of the incident was pregnant, and he was awaiting trial on that, and during while he was in jail, actually, he was accused of witness tampering, and then prosecutors had added almost a dozen, I think more than a dozen, felony charges. So he had just recently been let off house arrest so that he could travel for touring.
You know what's so crazy is his last tweet, he said he wanted to do a charity event. So that's what he was doing today. He put on his Instagram.
Yeah, and you know, he was with all of his demons, he was a successful rapper. I mean, he dropped an album that did real well.
Yeah.
Again, 20 years old, and this was just, you know, boom, it happens like that. I mean, it is a really sad situation.
How y'all doing, y'all? This is Darius from Houston, Texas, and it's a sad news we heard today, and it's crazy. And it's crazy how somebody so young, you know, goes so fast, and he had some demons, you know, but it's like he was trying to get his life together and everything. But you know, thoughts and prayers go out to his family. This is tragic news.
No, it's terrible.